All right, so let's dive in. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are taking on a truly massive subject.
It really is.
We're drawing on a huge body of work, a multi-year exploration of Nibbana. You probably know it better as Nirvana. And specifically, how it's talked about in the oldest, earliest sermons of the Pali Canon.
Right, the original source material.
And I think if you've ever read about Nibbana, it can feel like this impossibly far-off thing, Something for gods or maybe for a future life. We're here to really question that today.
Yeah, this deep dive is all about cutting through those more abstract layers that were added later on. Our sources are just relentlessly focused on the practical side of this, the actual realization.
So the mission then is to see Nibbana not as some kind of final reward after you die, but as something immediate, something you can verify for yourself, a transformative reality. So our goal is, I guess you could say, ambitious. We're unpacking the whole mechanism of suffering and how it stops. We want to find the raw, immediate core of the teaching, and our guide for this is these 6 qualities of the Dharma itself.
And these aren't just, nice-sounding phrases. They're a roadmap.
Right.
The Dharma is, first, well-proclaimed.
Yeah.
But the really critical ones for our discussion are that it's sanduhyuko.
Meaning you can see it right here, right now.
Right here, right now. And it's akalika, which means timeless. It doesn't depend on the season or some future date. Then there's ihipasiko.
The famous one.
Yeah.
Come and see for yourself.
Exactly. An open invitation. Then opanayiko, leading onwards. And finally, and this is key, pakata veritabo vinyuhi. It has to be understood by the wise, each one for themselves.
That emphasis on here and now and timeless seems so central to what we're framing up today. This is not about a heavenly state in the future.
It's everything. We have to start from the idea that Nibbana is an immediate realization in this life. And our sources, they have this built-in critique of some of the later ideas, especially in the commentaries.
What kind of ideas?
Well, this tendency to sort of surgically separate things, to say that the destruction of defilements is one mind moment, and Nibbana, the fruit, is a second separate mind moment.
That does sound a bit clinical.
Yeah.
Almost too neat.
It is. The early texts see it very differently. The path isn't a single instant. The path is the whole trajectory. Could be weeks, could be years of practice until the breakthrough.
And the fruit?
The fruit isn't a separate event that happens later. The fruit is the immediate personality change. It's this profound, irreversible shift that happens right in the wake of that breakthrough. It's about a total transformation of a person, not a metaphysical technicality.
Okay, that completely refocuses the discussion. Liberation is about transforming this mind in this life. With that said, let's jump into where the trouble starts. The fundamental human condition, which is described as, well, a total mess. We're going to start with this amazing riddle. A deity comes to the Buddha and asks him this question. And it just perfectly sets the stage. The deity asks, there's a tangle within and a tangle without. The world is entangled with a tangle. About that, Gautama, I ask you, who can disentangle this tangle?
I love that quote. It just perfectly encapsulates samsara. The tangle is everywhere. It's not just the stuff out there, politics, traffic, your difficult boss. That's the tangle without.
Right.
The real problem, the deep problem, is the tangle within, the confusion, the endless mental chatter, the attachments that just tie us up in knots.
And we're caught in it, but we're also the ones feeling it?
We are the tangle, in a way. And the Buddha's answer is so important because it's not about some god coming down to save us. It's all about human effort.
So who is the disentangler?
He says a wise monk, someone who establishes virtue, develops concentration, cultivates wisdom, and is, and I quote, ardent and prudent. That person can disentangle the tangle.
So it's an internal job.
It's a fully internal, fully human job. And the ultimate answer zeroes in on the arahat, the person whose lust, hate, and ignorance have completely faded. In them, the tangle is just gone, permanently.
Okay, so to even begin to untangle all this, we have to understand how we got tangled in the first place.
Yeah.
And that takes us straight to this foundational formula, dependent arising, paticca samuppada.
The big one.
Why is this considered the middle way? Why does it keep us out of those, dangerous philosophical ditches?
Because it's the antidote to dogmatism. The two big dogmatic extremes are, well, first there's eternalism.
The view that everything exists.
Yeah, the idea that there's some permanent self, a soul, something that never changes and survives everything. And on the other side, you have nihilism.
That nothing exists.
Yeah.
Annihilation.
The view that at the end of life, that's it. You're just obliterated. The teaching of dependent arising just sidesteps both.
Wow.
Because right view, what the noble disciple works on, means you have to see both the process of arising and the process of ceasing. You can't just pick one.
So nothing is permanent, which avoids eternalism.
Right. But what arises and ceases isn't a self or a soul in the first place. It's just suffering, stress,
Mhm.
confusion. So the end of that process isn't annihilation of a being.
It's the end of a process.
Exactly. It's like stopping a verb, not destroying a noun.
And that process, that arising, it starts with ignorance, or avijja,
Hmm.
which then conditions sankhara's preparations.
Mhm.
Now, to a modern ear, preparation sounds pretty benign, like I'm preparing dinner.
Mhm.
What's the deeper, more profound meaning of sankhara here?
That's a great question, because the link between ignorance and preparations is total. The texts are clear. These sankhara, these volitional formations, they only have any power against the dark background of ignorance. You destroy ignorance and the preparations just cease.
Yeah.
The deeper meaning is really subtle. If you picture consciousness as, say, a huge body of water, the preparations are like the submerged part of an iceberg. They're the huge, unseen structures that direct everything happening on the surface.
So these aren't just conscious plans. They're deep subconscious impulses that are shaping our very next moment.
Exactly. The texts are incredibly precise about this. They break them down into 3 types. For example, the in-breath and the out-breath. Just breathing.
Breathing is a preparation.
It's called a bodily preparation. It's a form of subtle, constant willing that keeps the physical body going.
Wow. So even the act of breathing is part of this drama continuing.
And then you have verbal preparations, applied and sustained thought. Before you even speak, there are these little mental movements that prepare the verbal act. And then, and this is crucial, perception and feeling are defined as mental preparation.
Wait, so just the act of feeling cold or seeing the color red,
Yeah.
that's an engine for continuing the cycle.
Yes, because it's all driven by this underlying ignorance that gives a sense of permanence and self to those experiences. The whole of samsara, the whole cycle, is seen as this endless drama being put on, and it's all driven by these unnoticed backstage preparations.
Okay, so that's the momentum. And when that momentum hits reality, you get turbulence. This is the samsaric vortex.
That's the imagery, the whirlpool, apanyasa. It's this forward current of suffering, which is driven by ignorance, and it's constantly pushing against the mainstream of reality.
And what's the mainstream?
The truth of impermanence, of conditionality. So you have this clash, this conflict between our attempt to hold on and create something solid and the reality that everything is just flowis. The immediate result of that clash is consciousness, vijnana, and name and form, namarupa.
It sounds absolutely exhausting.
It is exhausting, and that exhaustion is the definition of existence in this context. The vortex is this constant circuit between a thisness and an otherwiseness, a here and a there. We can never just be. We're always in the process of becoming something else.
So existence is just this relentless process of otherwise.
That's a perfect summary. And the goal, then, is to stop that spinning, to stop trying to be otherwise. When that current finally gives up trying to swim against the mainstream, the whole chain of suffering just collapses.
And the result of that spinning is namarupa, name and form. The sources seem to have a really unique take on the mind-matter relationship. It's not the kind of rigid duality we see in a lot of Western philosophy.
Not at all. That's a key point. Early Buddhism sees them as an interrelated pair, codependent. Form, or rupa, is known with the help of name, nama. And name needs form to be designated. They aren't 2 separate things at war. They're 2 sides of one coin.
And the definition of rupa itself is really different from, say, modern physics.
Oh, completely. Rupa isn't matter because it's made of solid, stable atoms. The Pali root, rupati, means to be affected. It's called form because it is affected by cold, heat, wind, a mosquito bite. It's defined by its vulnerability to change, not its solidity.
So this conditioned form needs consciousness to keep going. This brings us to vijnana, consciousness. And this is the part that so many people mistake for a soul.
The biggest mistake. And the texts hammer this point home again and again. The idea of a single self-same consciousness that travels through life after life, that's called out as a seriously wrong view.
Because consciousness is also dependently arisen.
It's dependently arisen. It needs an object. It needs fuel. The texts compare it to a seed that needs a field, which is kama, and moisture, which is craving, in order to grow. Without a basis, without something to be conscious of, it can't be established.
So if you destroy the basis for it, the grasping,
Then the consciousness that depends on that basis can't restart. It has nowhere to land.
and this whole incredibly complex system, it all seems to hang on one single subtle idea that holds it all together, the idea of a self.
we finally arrive at the source. The ultimate source of our entire world of experience, even our grammar, is the conceit, I am, as Nibbana.
The first person.
It's the basic peg everything hangs on. I think, I feel, this is mine. If you uproot that peg, the whole act of designation becomes impossible.
But even this conceit, this feeling of I am, isn't some fundamental uncaused thing, is it? It's conditioned, too.
Absolutely conditioned. It arises because of the 5 groups of grasping, the panikupadana kanda. And that little prefix, upadana, is so important. It means a tenacious, tight holding on to something that's right here.
It's active grasping.
It's an active, energetic holding. And there's this incredible simile of the cord that shows exactly how this grasping creates what we call existence, or bhava.
Okay, let's spend a minute on this because it's such a brilliant image.
It really is. So imagine 2 people, and they're winding a cord, one from each end. Now, if they're both winding it in the same direction, they're actually canceling each other out. They're unwinding it.
But they don't realize that.
They don't. They're just part of a process. But then a third person comes along, and this person grabs the cord right in the middle and just holds on for dear life, grasps it. That grasping, that exertion of force creates the semblance of a taut, wound-up, tense rope. That tension is existence. It's bhava.
So wait, the existence, the tension, it's not inherent in the rope or the winders. It's created solely by the person grabbing it in the middle.
That's the insight. The moment that grasp is released, the rope goes slack. The tension vanishes. The entire drama is perpetuated by the worldling clinging to a perception of permanence, creating a knot where there isn't one. That tenacious holding on, that's the whole problem right there. And what's so elegant about this is that understanding the problem dependent arising is also the key to the solution. The core of the solution is just seeing experientially that everything is conditioned, everything is impermanent, and because of that, nothing can control itself. Nothing has a permanent self.
So we have to go from intellectually getting it to this big experiential breakthrough. How did the text say we bridge that gap?
By declaring very clearly that Nibbana is realized here and now. The path is what gets you to that experience. Hashtag 2.1, realizing Nibbana here and now.
Okay, let's challenge the common idea here. The sources say that the very first major breakthrough, stream entry or sotapadhi, is already an experience of Nibbana. How can that be? If Nibbana is the ultimate end, how can a stream entrant who still has some fetters be experiencing it?
Because it's not a quick glimpse from a distance, the texts are really specific. They call it a reaching, an arrival, or a plunge into Nibbana.
A plunge, I like that.
The insight is so total, it's the birth of what's called the Dharma eye, the moment you truly see that existence is a predicament and that letting go is the only way out, that the experience itself is an experience of the cessation element of Nibbana.
So it's not just agreeing with the idea, it's an irreversible experiential taste of that safety beyond the whirlpool.
Precisely. And there's this amazing story, the simile of the soldier Nyla.
Okay.
The story goes that this soldier, Nyla, used a giant iron bar to part the sea, just for a moment, so the king's army could cross to the other side.
Right.
In the same way, when the supermundane path arises in the mind, the power of thought, not intellectual thought, but this deep, penetrative wisdom is like that mighty blow. It parts the seawater of all our habitual tendencies and influxes, the sankhara, just for a moment.
In that moment,
you see the very bottom. You see the unconditioned. You see Nibbana. The force to do it is immense, but the vision is complete. It changes you forever.
Which suggests that Nibbana is basically synonymous with just stopping that internal momentum.
It is. The term destruction of craving, Tantrikaya, is used in the texts as a full-fledged synonym for Nibbana. And there's this verse in the Udana that just drives home how valuable this is. It says that any bliss you can get from the senses, even divine bliss in the highest heavens, all these are not worth 116th of the bliss of the destruction of craving.
Wow. That really puts it beyond any kind of reward system, earthly or otherwise. It's not a prize. It's the end of suffering itself.
It's the destruction of the mass of suffering that's right in front of us. Think about how craving works. It always bends you forward. It's an infinity progression. I need this for that, and I need that for something else.
It's always a journey to somewhere else.
Always. But when you make the destruction of craving the actual object of your practice, that whole forward-moving progression just ends. There's nothing more to get, nothing more to become.
And this state, this achievement, is stable. It's permanent, which is why the texts call it unshakable.
Exactly. Nibbana is called dhruva, meaning stable, immovable. Akupacheto vimutti, unshakable deliverance of heart. And the reason it's unshakable is because all other states, even the highest states of meditation, can be disturbed. They're temporary. And the final test for any spiritual state is how does it hold up when you're dying?
Right.
Nibbana is unshakable because it nullifies the power of Mara, the end maker, even at that most critical moment. Hashtag tag tag 2.2 transcending duality and proliferation, papanka.
So what is it that stops most of us from seeing this unshakable reality? We come back to this key psychological idea, papanka. What exactly are we proliferating?
Papanka. It's such a deep concept. It's usually translated as reckonings born of prolific perceptions. It's basically all the mental constructs, all the complexity, all the noise we generate.
Like spiritual static.
That's a great way to put it. It's fueled by craving, conceit, and our fixed views. There's also this link to language, to our grammar. The word itself, papanka, might be related to panika, meaning five, as in the five aggregates, or even the idea of the five fingers going out of hand.
Getting out of control.
We take our words and our concepts way too seriously. We build these huge, elaborate views based on this fundamental split between is and is not.
And we spend all day doing it, arguing with ourselves and everyone else using these dualistic ideas.
We do, and so the path to Nibbana has to be Nippapanka, the non-prolific state. To get there, you have to redefine your whole map of existence.
Okay, so where is this world that we're trying to get free from? Where do we locate the problem?
The sources are so clear on this. In the Noble One's discipline, the world, loka, is always defined in terms of the six sense bases.
So sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thought.
That's it. The world isn't some galaxy far away. The world is your immediate experience right now. It arises in the six sense bases, and so it must cease through the cessation of the six sense bases.
But that can't mean going blind and deaf.
No. It means understanding the sensation of them completely. Seeing the five aspects for every sense experience. The arising, the passing away, the temporary satisfaction, the inherent danger or peril, and finally, the way out, the stepping out.
So when you stop building concepts on top of bare sensation.
That's it. When you cut off the conceptual link between name and form, contact, and perception, the whole tangle dissolves. The six senses stop being a basis for all that proliferation. Hashtag tag 2.3, middle path of non-identification.
So to cut off that proliferation, the practice is atamayata, non-identification. How far does this have to go?
All the way. It has to be absolute. You have to practice non-identification with everything, even with your highest spiritual achievements.
Like what?
Like attaining the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. If you think, wow, I have attained this incredible state, that's still conceit, mana. And that conceit makes you unsteady. When that state you're identified with eventually shakes and passes away, you get shaken up too.
So even our achievements can become another anchor for suffering if we identify with them.
It's the final trap. And that's why the ultimate instruction for this is in that famous teaching given to Bahia. It sounds so simple.
The bare awareness instruction.
In the scene, just the scene. In the herd, just the herd. In the sense, just the sense. In the cognized, just the cognized. It's this radical discipline to just stop short. To not add the I, the me, the mine on top of the raw data.
And what happens when the mind actually does that? When it successfully stops short?
The result is the end of conceptualization, which is the end of that tension of existence, bhava, and the end of suffering. The texts say that when you are not by it, meaning you don't identify with it, and not in it, meaning you don't cling to it, you will be neither here nor beyond, nor in between the two.
The whole map just disappears. The sense of a location for the self dissolves.
Exactly. That whole ambivalence of a here versus a there, which is the engine of the vortex, just dissolves. And that non-located, non-identified state is the end of suffering.
Which brings us to the raft simile, the final check against getting attached, even to the teachings themselves.
The perfect pragmatic ending. The Dharma is a tool for crossing a river. You don't get to the other side and then strap the raft to your back and carry it around.
Right, you let it go.
Even the most profound concepts, like dependent arising, are tools. They're functional. They get you to that non-proliferated state. And then their job is done.
So we've established Nibbana is this realization, the cessation of grasping. Now let's turn to what it's actually like for the fully awakened person, the Arahat. What is this state, which is so often defined by what it is not?
It's a state that's free from the obsession with grammar, free from the dualities that keep the vortex spinning. It's defined by transcending all of those relative conditioned ideas. Hashtag 3.1 non-manifestative consciousness. Nibbana Ven Nanananda.
Okay, so let's talk about the Arahat's mind. The text use this amazing phrase, the lust of wisdom, Peñava, and they say it's supreme among all lusters.
It's a deliberate comparison.
Right.
Wisdom is put above the sun, the moon, fire. It's not just bright, it's illuminating in a way that just destroys the darkness of ignorance. And the consciousness of the Arhat is described with three incredible terms: non-manifestative, Anirasana, boundless, Ananta, and luminous, Paba.
And this is the state where earth, water, fire, and air find no footing.
Right.
That term non-manifestative. Why is that so crucial? What does it tell us about a liberated mind versus an ordinary mind?
Well, ordinary consciousness is always manifestative. It arises because of an object, a sight, a sound, a thought. Our entire sense of self is just this continuous stream of manifestations linked to sense data.
Okay.
But the Arahat's consciousness is anadasana. It doesn't manifest in dependence on the sense fields. And that idea of the four elements finding no footing is it's fundamental.
Why?
Because the four primaries, earth, water, fire, air, are the basis for how we designate the form aggregate rupa. So a mind where they find no footing is free from being defined by any worldly concepts. For a normal person, everything is sticky. We cling to the earthiness of earth. We give it the solid, permanent reality.
But the Arahat's mind doesn't register that quality.
It doesn't register the clinging to that quality. The consciousness isn't under their spell, that heavy, substantial reality we give things. It's just not seen as a viable place to land, to cling. So the consciousness is boundless, Ananta, not because it's infinitely big, but because it transcends all those limited dualistic concepts. It's immeasurable.
And this conceptual boundlessness, this is why the Arahat is described as untraceable, like a bird in the sky.
That's the perfect metaphor. The path is untraceable because there's no object left for craving to hook into. There's no fuel left for the fire. If there was still a little bit of identity, some object, Mara, the end maker, could set his net and catch them. But because the fuel is gone, their range is, well, it's the deliverance of the void. There's nothing there for Mara to define.
And this all comes back to the fire simile, Nibbana as extinction.
The Buddha compares it to a fire that goes out because it runs out of fuel, the fuel being grasping. And the key is, when a fire goes out, you don't ask, where did the fire go? Did it go north? South? The question makes no sense. The fire was a process, not a thing.
So asking where the Tathagata goes after death is the same kind of meaningless question.
Exactly. Because the thing that you could designate, the clinging self, was already extinguished long before the body died. Hashtag TAG 3.2, transcending the duality of Nibbana.
This leads us to a distinction that can be confusing. The two Nibbana elements, Nibbana with residual clinging and Nibbana without it. If the goal is fully realized here and now, what's the difference?
Yeah, this is often misunderstood. People think it's like a partial versus a complete realization. It's not. There are two aspects of one perfect realization you can get in this life.
Okay, so what's the first one?
So Padasesa is the experience of having extinguished all the defilements while the body is still alive. The Arahat experiences total calm, total non-grasping, but the physical body and mind, which are the result of past karma, keep going until physical death.
So Anupadesa, Nibbana without remainder, is the assurance about what happens after death.
Precisely. It's the certitude, which you attain while still alive, that the peace you found won't be changed or affected at all by the body's dissolution. It completely nullifies the power of Mara over that final transition. It's the assurance of irreversibility.
And this whole concept seems to be the engine behind the Buddha's famous refusal to answer those four questions. The tetralemma. He wouldn't say if the Tathagata exists after death, doesn't exist, both, or neither.
Right, because he rejected the premise of the questions.
Yeah.
They're all based on this faulty assumption that a Tathagata is a definable entity in the first place that could be put into one of those four boxes.
But the Tathagata can't be found in truth or fact, even while alive.
You've got it. The I am conceit is gone. There's no vortex, no center, no being for Mara to designate. So asking what happens to that being after death is just meaningless talk. It's Papanka applied to the ultimate truth.
The story of the monk Yamaka really drives this home. He had this annihilationist view.
He did. Yamaka thought that an enlightened monk was just annihilated at death, a self that disappears. So Sariputta walks him through it, systematically. He asks him, Yamaka, do you see form as the Tathagata, feeling, perception, consciousness?
He's forcing him to look for this supposed self right here, right now in his own experience.
And Yamaka eventually has to admit, no, the Tathagata can't be found or designated in truth in any of these five aggregates, even right now.
So if you can't find him while he's alive,
then the question of what happens when he dies just dissolves. It's baseless. It's not annihilation. It's non-designation. The rope was never really tense. The grasping just made it seem that way. Hashtag Takchak 3.3, the final calm, Abhitaka Samadhi.
So if the Arhat is free from all of this illusion of self, this problem of designation, what's the quality of their mind? How do they just maintain this unshakable release all the time?
They maintain a state called Avitaka Samadhi, or thoughtless concentration, but we have to be really careful with that term.
It doesn't just mean a blank mind.
No, this isn't the temporary quiet you get in tranquility meditation. This is a concentration that's all about insight, about vipassana. It's a profound state that uses penetrative wisdom to just eradicate the very foundation of prolific perception of papanka.
So it's thoughtless because it's free from the kinds of thoughts that lead to identification and grasping.
Exactly. It just wafts away the hosts of Mara, the forces of confusion and death, by taking out the citadel of identification itself.
And to someone operating at that level, the conditioned world must seem, I don't know, almost illusory.
The disenchantment is total. The arahat experiences the world like an actor in a mime show. They're fully engaged, they're interacting with everything, but they know deep down that the objects lack any inherent substance.
They're sitting on a no chair, opening a no door.
That's the image. The objects are just suggested by the performance. They're necessary for the conventional drama of life, but they're not clung to as real. When the actor sits on the no chair, they don't fear falling because they know the chair is just a temporary designation.
And that freedom from designation leads to freedom from fear, especially the fear of death.
The fear is gone because the arahat has reversed the transaction. They know that if they were to be killed, they would pass away experiencing the ambrosia of deathless because they let go before Mara ever came to grasp. The shuttle in the loom just refuses to put in the knot of craving and conceit anymore. The unraveled knot is freedom. Hashtag Nashtag outro. So, to just kind of wrap this all up, the entire path from understanding how our own preparations, our sankhara, work, all the way to realizing this absolute non-identification, it all leads to the dissolution of that tangle within and without. Liberation isn't some mystical flight. It's the immediate here and now cessation of the tension of existence, bhava nirada. By destroying the defilements, the mind is finally emptied of that subtle, powerful conceit, I am, which is really the gravitational center of all our suffering.
And you know, this brings us right back to where we started with those 6 qualities of the Dharma. We can see so clearly now how Nibbana is truly seen here and now, how it's timeless, because it's not a future goal. It's the immediate stopping of our present attachments.
The invitation to come and see is real.
It's real because the result, this profound change in freedom, is verifiable. It's achieved by cutting off that whole mechanism of conceptual proliferation of papanka.
And remember, the world in the Noble One's discipline is just the 6 sense bases. And the only thing holding that world together is the glue of perceived permanence.
So this brings it right back to you, the listener. In this very moment, we learned that all of existence, Rupa, is defined by being affected by change. So if the world you're experiencing right now is built entirely on a perception of permanence, what aspect of your current sensory experience right now actually feels substantial enough to cling to?
The path is simply letting go of that grasping hand on the cord.
What would happen if you truly applied that wisdom, that everything arising in this moment is subject to immediate cessation? What would your world be then?
Food for thought.
Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.